All right, welcome back, everybody. I hope that you have enjoyed these 2 days as much as I have enjoyed, not just meeting some extremely extraordinary women leaders in their own professional spaces, but also listening to so many others who spoke, as I said, with unprecedented candor, compassion, and courage. In fact, I think those would be the three words that I would use to sum up everything that we've heard here in almost unfiltered, unfettered space for community building, for mentoring, for inspiring, and for being inspired. I know many of you have just come out of your agenda sessions, and I hope you are able to do a deeper dive into the issues you most care about at the breakout sessions, at the small roundtables. I was just thinking that if I had to use, the motto that has emerged from the last 2 days, it began with the inaugural plenary itself. It was make a lot of trouble and stop apologizing for being troublemakers. And then the next time somebody says about a woman, oh, she's a lot of trouble, I think that we should take it as a compliment. And I think that I was saying in the plenary session that I moderated that there is such a ingrained sense in so many of us to put everybody else before we put our own dreams, our own ambitions, our own happiness. But I think listening to everybody over the last 2 days, the emphasis on making ourselves the spotlight of our lives before we actually seek to make anyone else happy, I think that would be a valuable lesson to take away. Before we go, the statistics, the extraordinary statistics do bear repetition. We do need to remember what COVID has done to the lives of women and girls. We do need to remember that the United Nations statistics tell us that 54 million women lost their jobs, that millions of women are going to be pushed into poverty, that millions of girls are being pushed into underage forced marriages, that we heard from the extraordinary Hadika, who started a movement against this at the age of 13, when her friend, aged 7 years old, was being married off and being forced to have sex. The intersectionality of this conversation is laid bare boned in the last 2 days. We recognize many of us our own privilege. Even as we soldier on, we recognize our duty to mentor. We recognize our duty to make space at the table for other women who are looking to us to show the way. And we leave today with the statistic that still hasn't changed, even with everything that has changed, that 70% of the global health force is made up by women, but only 25% occupy leadership position, with that number falling to 5% in many low and middle income countries. Every time I actually say that number out loud, I am staggered by disbelief. And I think we just need to say it again and again till it actually sinks in. But again, we also celebrate how much has been done, how much has been achieved, how much has already changed, and that even that 25% of women leaders in global health did not exist till some few years ago. So every day is a new fight, every day is a new achievement. And we leave you now with the last session of these 2 days, the special focus on our spotlight speakers. But first, I must tell you that if there was a session you particularly enjoyed, if there was a session that you really wanted to hear, but you missed, participants to this conference can watch any of the videos from yesterday or today on demand through our platform at the end of the event. They're there. If you missed it, you want to watch it again, don't feel bad. They're right there for you to watch. Let me leave you now with that urging of making a lot of trouble, being heard, making a lot of noise, and to tell you thank you in gratitude for the candor, courage, and compassion of the last 2 days, with a little bit about whom you're going to hear from now. First, you hear from Suhasini Haidar. She's a colleague and a friend. She's the diplomatic editor at The Hindu, which is one of India's foremost newspapers. And you'll also be hearing from Fidji Simo, the CEO of Instacart, and Laura Pace, the CEO of the Metrodora Institute. So we leave you with these final words of inspiration. It has been a pleasure and a privilege to be your MC today. Thank you for your participation and for your inspiration.
Hello, I'm Suhasini Haidar, diplomatic editor of the Hindu newspaper in India. I've been a journalist for more than 25 years. And when it comes to reimagining leadership, especially for a gender balanced future, I think we must remember that there are three important conversations we all must have on mentoring, on mental health, and on money. The first, on mentoring, I started out with a boss who was a woman. And even today, the chairman of my company, who was actually my editor before this, is a woman. Apart from the power of example that they set and the pride one feels on women making it to top places, mentoring is really a favor one has to pay forward to other young women so they don't feel restricted at work, at balancing a family, and at aiming to smash that glass ceiling once and for all. Second is really about mental health. In conflict journalism, particularly, one has to work under pressure on the worst possible stories, covering war, riots, train crashes, tragedy of all kinds. And the one thing a team leader must do is make sure they talk it out with all their team. A more empathetic team leader really is one who finds out what each team member is feeling, needs to ensure that everyone is okay. And the third, the conversation about money. Remember, women do hold up half the sky. It's really high time that leaders ensure that they get paid as well as their male colleagues do. Gender disparity is a complete anomaly that'll also hurt your company and your country's bottom lines. I say this from experience of covering different parts of the world. Conflict is much lower in gender balanced countries than it is in places where women are not treated as equals. And that is true both of countries and of your company. I wish you all the best at Women Lift Health, as well as the women leaders in global health. Namaste.
I think the most important thing we need to do is to break this cycle where women are not believed when they come to a doctor and share their symptoms. Therefore, we don't identify the conditions that actually ail them. And then we don't do research on these conditions. And as a result, because there's very little understanding of how women's bodies work, we end up not believing that they have all of these issues. And so we create this vicious cycle that we fundamentally need to break if we want women's health to improve.
And so breaking this cycle means getting to the root of understanding why there are these differences in women's biology. And so applying research technologies to really understand this, because it's fairly unacceptable that in this day and age, we don't understand why women are more likely to have autoimmune conditions or complex multi-system disorders. And so this is a problem that actually affects women globally. I think the way that we start to reimagine leadership in women's health is that I think we need to start thinking about that if the systems that we're working within are not allowing us to really affect change that is positively impacting women's health, then it's time for us to start thinking about moving outside these systems and doing something very different that really is going to work towards solving these problems.
That's exactly what you see us doing in Silicon Valley. I mean, the reason Silicon Valley is kind of a birthplace of innovation is because we don't stick to the way things have been done before. We look at what is the problem to solve and we figure out what is the best solution for that problem. And I think what we've done together with Metro Dora is try to figure out what is the absolute best solution if we were to design it from scratch to solve the problem outside of how things have been done before. I think the thing that's unique about Silicon Valley is that we really look at what is the problem to solve and what is the best solution for that problem, regardless of what has been done before. We start very much from scratch and thinking about what is the absolute best solution with the tools that we have at hand. And this is very much what we've done with Metro Dora. We've looked at the problem to solve and tried to figure out who are the partners we need to assemble? What are the technologies that we need to put on the table in order to solve the problem of neuroimmune conditions for women? And that required breaking a lot of the mold of how things are done in traditional healthcare. And for me, coming out of Silicon Valley, I didn't realize how much that was completely novel thinking in healthcare. But I was lucky to find Laura, who had both the healthcare expertise, but also a very different approach and a willingness to innovate. And I think that's what it's going to take to solve these very complex problems that the old methods clearly haven't solved.
I think the way that women can start to think about their leadership roles within healthcare is in an innovative way. And so if we're working within these systems that is not allowing us to affect change, not allowing us to rise to positions that are impacting the health of women, then we move outside those systems and we create systems that actually work. And so I think it's a different way than women have traditionally thought about things, to really just go outside and say, I know I can do this differently. I know that this will positively affect women's health, and that's why I'm doing this.
It has been such an inspiration to spend the last 2 days with women leaders, male allies, and proud troublemakers from across the globe. Thank you for joining us for our 5th annual Women Leaders in Global Health Conference, where we broke open the discussion about leadership and witnessed agreement that empathy, fairness, authenticity, and inclusiveness are qualities of women's leadership, but more to the point, they're qualities of transformative, equitable, and impactful leadership. We also heard loud and clear about the importance of access to education, the crucial role men can play in actively creating space for women, and how absolutely vital it is to create pathways for women and girls, especially those struggling to find a way forward. As we've reimagined leadership, we heard the real lived experiences of women, and they stress the importance of, quote, learning to do things even if afraid. They talked about taking action through supporting peers, mentoring, getting to the decision table to change policy, and above all else, about speaking up for yourself and a colleague, speaking up for a woman in your community, for a girl at risk of FGM, and speaking up for a 7-year-old child bride. Because while speaking up has a price, silence has an even bigger one. You've already heard me say that when women lead, better health follows, but so much else does too. Let's keep this momentum going. Let's each speak out in ways that propel us all forward, that contribute to change, and that expand the power of women leaders in health and beyond. Let's make sure women leaders aren't just at the table, but also have the support and resources and the power to rebuild the table when it's needed. Women and male allies are making change. They're already contributing. We are all already contributing to better systems that work for everyone, for families, communities, countries. But we need to do so much more. The world is starting to reimagine what great leadership looks, sounds, and acts like. And over these 2 days, we've heard and we've seen empathetic leadership, inclusive leadership, strong leadership, and we're all here for more of it. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to working with you to be the best kind of troublemakers going forward.